Yeah. Our first session that we had live on Google Meet on Friday. We had some technical issues. We had a couple of people joined. So I decided to have um, a recording um, to take you back through the Jupyter notebook that we used for that session. So this is going to be beneficial for people that joined and were not able to stay till the end with us, and also people that were not able to join at all. So what you're seeing right now is the Jupyter notebook file that we used for that session, and this is not a Word document, even though it looks like one. So this is a Jupyter notebook file. I already have videos and I think instruction, a step-by-step guide document that I shared with you on how to install Python and Jupyter Notebook. So I'm not going to be covering that in this session because we don't have much time for that. So I know some people have already installed Python and Jupyter Notebook. So I won't be doing that in this session. But if you have any issues to um, any technical issues concerning installation of Python or Jupyter Notebook, you can always send a message um, via the technical support group on WhatsApp. I would always try as much as I can to respond. But alternatively, I spoke about a plan B, and if you are still not able to install Jupyter Notebook, you can still continue with the training and be able to run Python, but not on your local machine, but in the cloud. So there are a couple of options available, but the one I always like to use is called Google Colab. So if you go to this URL that says collab.research.google.com, you are going to find your own Google Colab environment, and it is directly linked to your. Ignore this code. This is just my personal work. So you are going to be linked to your Google Drive. So whatever you do in the Colab environment is going to be saved in your Google Drive. So if I'm in the Colab environment, for instance, and I want to um, have a new notebook, yeah, I can have a new notebook in the drive. I can open notebook. I can upload a notebook. So at the end of this session, I'm going to be sending you the notebook for this particular session that I'm doing. And if you want to work on that notebook, you can click on this upload notebook, and then you find your way to where you have saved it on your computer, and then be able to upload it. So after uploading it, you can begin to work on it. So let me see. I want to open a new notebook, for instance, just to show you how to run a notebook file in Google Colab. Yeah. So it's already showing untitled because we don't have a name. So anytime you see this extension IPYNB, it tells you that it is a notebook file, a Jupyter notebook file. So you might not be able to open it just anyhow on your phone or on your computer without having Jupyter notebook installed, or without taking it through Google Colab to open. So if you want to open a Jupyter notebook file, the best way is to either open it with a Jupyter notebook installed on your computer, and if you don't have it installed, you can always come to Colab and then upload your notebook from wherever you have saved it on your PC. So I want to do some quick coding here to show you how you can use the Jupyter notebook, and then it is automatically saved in your Google Drive, like I said. So one of the things that will assist you in identifying the file in your Google Drive would be the name. So this is untitled. So I want to give it a name. Let me call it Zero2data session. So I've saved that name as Zero2data. You can use Control S to save whatever it is that you're doing. So it saves your work. So I want to write my first Python script in Colab. If I say print, hello, to run this code, I have to click on this play button. So every notebook file have the run with cells. So this is a single cell. I can bring another cell for code or for text. So if I want to bring another cell in for code, I can click on this and then it brings another cell for code. If I want another cell, I can click on this. So for documentation purpose, if I want to bring another cell for text to add text, I can click on this and then it brings that. So I can type maybe a textual description of what I'm trying to do just for documentation purpose and easy understanding of whatever it is that I'm doing. And if I want to delete that cell, I click on this. I want to delete it, I click on this. I click on this, but I want to run this cell now to see what is the output is going to be. So you click on this play button here. So let's see if it's going to print hello. So it has printed hello. So with this, I think nobody should have issues running a Jupyter notebook in their Google Colab. So I'm going to go back to the Jupyter notebook file that is on my local machine. So this one is on my local machine. So you can see local host. So this is on my local machine. It is not in the cloud, except I decide to upload it in the cloud. So um, the objective is clear. So just the basics of Python, and then we move on into how it relates to data analytics. So we are going to be using these basic essential Python libraries. So to install those libraries, this is the command to use: pip install numpy, pandas, matplotlib, and cbon. So these are one, two, three, four different libraries. There are so many Python libraries, so, but for this purpose, we would like to begin with those four because they are like the most important when it comes to data analytics. So to run a cell, this is a code cell. Let me tell you that this is a cell that contains text, not code. And how to differentiate between a cell that contains text and code in a Jupyter notebook file is by coming here. So you have your options: code, markdown, raw, nb convert, and edit. So in this case, is in the markdown format. So if I decide to change this to code, is in the code format, and this is not um, any language that the machine is going to understand. This is not code. I have not typed any code here. I've only written text. So if I run this, it is supposed to give me an error. Yes, because invalid syntax. What are you talking about? The machine does not understand. But if I decide to change the type or the format to markdown, which accepts textual format of, you know, writing, maybe you want to explain like the way I'm explaining what I'm doing here, and I run it. So it gives me this beautiful text. And the same thing applies to this. This is another cell on its own. So you would notice something. If I click on any cell, there's blue here. Um, if I would decide to delete any cell, I don't want to delete this one. So I'm going to have to um, let me run this again. Yeah, so I have that. But if I want to insert another cell, I can click on insert. Whether I want it above this one or below it, I can click on it. So if I say above it, so it gives me opportunity to type whatever it is that I want. So after typing, whether it is code or text, and then I feel like I don't want this cell anymore. I want to delete it. You click on this area and be sure that this is in blue. If it is in green like this, you won't be able to delete it with this method that I'm about to show you. So you want to delete this cell, ensure that this is in blue by clicking here. So it is in blue now. So I can now double tap letter D on my keyboard, and that is going to delete it. So you click D twice and it will be deleted. So to run our first Python script in our Jupyter notebook file that is on our local machine, I can click on run after clicking on that cell. So you click on that cell this way, and then you click on run, and then you have hello world. So that's our first Python script here, and we have successfully run it. So in Python, syntax are very important. So syntax talks about the structure, the way of writing the code. It's very important. You don't just write the code anyhow. And Python is so interesting because it is like the closest to human language that I know. In terms of programming languages, how close they are to human language. That's human language like English language. So it speaks a language that is not too far from what the human beings will understand. So the machine will understand it, but also you want something that is as close as possible to what human beings will understand. So basically, anyone that is not a programmer that has not written any code before will understand that this is just a condition. So in programming, this is called a conditional statement. So this is just a condition. The condition is saying that if 5 is greater than 2, perform this action. So what happens if 5 is not greater than 2, or if I have put a number that is not greater than 2? So if this condition is true, do this. So let's see what that is going to give us. 5 is greater than 2. But if I decide to do this, if 1 is greater than 2, is this condition actually true in the real sense of it? Let's see if we are going to see any output. So no output because this condition is false. It is not true. So that is why we have that. If I take it back, or let me use another number that is just actually greater than 2, yes, something is printed. So let me take it back to what we had initially. But some of the things I want you to notice is that when you're writing code in Python and some other programming languages, it is very important to follow acceptable syntax. So in this case, you would notice that I did not put my print here. This is where the print is. And usually, let me show you. I want to insert a cell above and see how we can type this. I say if 5 is greater than 2, that is the condition. After every conditional statement, there must be a colon. So when you put that colon and you click on your enter key on your keyboard, it will automatically take you to where the next action, where the action, the required action that should be taken should start from. Print. It did not bring the cursor here. It didn't start here because from this conditional statement, it already understands that, oh, after every condition, it is an action to be taken. So the action to be taken must start by observing this correct indentation of 4 spaces. So you don't really need to begin to click on 4 spaces all the time. As long as you put your cursor at the end of that column and then click on enter. So when you click on enter, you are able to now type the action that is required to be taken. Five is greater than 2. So if I run this now, it's going to give me that same answer. So this is just for instructional purpose. I need to delete this now because I don't need it. So now, but if what is going to happen if I decide to start writing the required action, which is print from here, instead of using the correct spacing, what is going to happen? Let's see. Now it has caused an error. So errors are part of programming. So don't be scared of errors. So it's always important to understand that you don't need to be scared of errors. You just need to understand how to find the solution to every error that you encounter. So easily by copying this error that you have seen and then taking it to Google, you would surely find answers to your to the problem, answers that would lead you to solutions. And this is simply because there are so many people that must have encountered that same type of problem that you are seeing. This is W3 Schools, one of the most reliable places to find solution. This is Stack Overflow, also very reliable. So if you click on this link, you have people that have had the same problems coming up to, you know, write about how to solve it. And these are just basic problems. There are more complex problems that you also use the same method to find solutions to. And it is also acceptable if you want to use large language models like ChatGPT to find solutions. So basically, if you just copy the error here into ChatGPT as well, you will surely get a solution. So don't be scared of having errors. Just understand how to find the solutions to every problems that you are facing. So that takes us to variables and data types. Yeah, I need to also mention a platform called GitHub, GitHub, where it's just like the social media of programmers. So you can find solutions to anything. I always say that I always believe that there's no problem that you are facing in coding that no somebody else has never faced before. And then those kind of people, most of the time, they have put the solution out there online for you to just access. So your job now would now be to look for that solution. So usually it depends on how far you are willing to go to actually be able to dig deep and find the solutions to those problems. So talking about data types, most of us always think that data is always like numbers, numbers, numbers. I think as at today, I don't know if you would agree with me, but it is a fact that more than 80% of available data is actually in text format. And that is why we are able to have large language models like ChatGPT and all that, because numbers as forms of data are just very small compared to what is available in textual format at this moment. And the revolution is still going on. Different data types, whether in audio, video formats, and all that, in pictures, different data types. But for this level, we'll be talking about the most common data types and the ones who will be working with at this level. Text type, numeric types, Boolean type. So the text type, the the technical language to call it at this level is called string. So if somebody tells you that, oh, the data type is a string format, you know that they are talking about text type. So if I have a variable called name and I assign a value called Alex, Alice is the value assigned to the variable name. And Alex is a data type that is in the string format. So the same goes to numeric types. So when you have like age, you can see this is clearly an integer. So it's an integer format. So if you have something like grade 89.5 is something that looks like a decimal. So in Python, we call it float. And then you have the complex number, you have the Boolean type. So this is very, very important. It is very, very important because um, you are going to be seeing a lot of data that are containing this type of fields or this type of features. So for instance, if you have a long data set, a big data set that contains names of different people, and then you want a column that would that would tell you whether the person is a student or not. So that column can take just two values, and then you can use the Boolean type for that, because you know it can take two values. Is it that the person is a student or is not a student? So if that column is given the name is student, so every other um, item on that in that database, for instance, in that data frame, uh, is going to assume the value of true or false. So I think that is clear, because is it that you're a student or you're not a student? And then you have the sequence types. You have list, tuple, you have set type, you have um one. You can see in our live session somebody mentioned that what is the difference between tuple and set, and it's important to see they look alike but they are different. So the major difference is this, the type of brackets that they have. So then the dictionary type of data accept what I call, or what we call, the key value pairs. So the variable is a student, and then it has all these keys and values. So for a student, it has a key called name, and the value in this particular case is Alice. Another key called age, the value in this case is 25. Another key called course, the value in this case is data analytics. So this is what we call, you can see that the keys and values are joined by a column. So, and you can also observe that if the data type is in the text form, it will be in the double quote. But if it is in numeric form, you don't need to put any double quotes there. So these are key value pairs that explain what a dictionary is. Yeah, talking about arithmetic operations, you can define you can define let me just do this. You can define a variable, call it sum result, and say it is equal to 10 plus 5, for instance. So if I say it is equal to 10 plus 5, this is our addition operation, you know, and I decide to run this cell. No result comes out because I did not print anything. Remember, this is just to remind you of how important this print is. Anytime you want a result to be displayed, you need to print. So what do we want to print? We want to print that sum result that we have defined. Sum result. If you mistakenly do this, for instance, you can see that it has already given us 15 when we did the correct thing. But if you make a mistake and then you run it this way, it's going to tell you that the name sum results is not defined, because this thing that you are printing, you did not define it anywhere. This is what you defined. So I need to go back to correct that mistake. So what I have actually defined. And if I run it again, I get the correct answer. So the same thing goes to product. If I run this, I get an answer 50, because 10 times 50. The same thing goes to division. So if I run this as well, it's going to give me the division result. Yeah, another um, string operation. The ones we talked about are numeric operations, addition of numbers, division of numbers. You can also do some operations with text. And let me start with this. So if I define a variable, let me first of all explain what we mean by string concatenation. So strings, I already explained what strings are. They are text, data in text format. So when you talk about concatenation, so you are joining strings together, and then maybe you are using it for whatever, anything you want to do with it. So in this case, I have defined a variable called greeting, and I say it is equal to hello plus world. So if I want to print this greeting, let's see what our output is going to look like. Hello world. But the problem is there's no space in between. So to add space is what I deleted initially, that you can add space this way, double quote, and then space. So if you can see hello in this double quote, space in this double quote, world in this double quote. So those three entities would be added together if I run this code again, and then gives us hello space world, which is looking more pleasing to the eye. So let's do this one. List an array. So these numbers, this is an array of numbers, and it has been assigned to this variable called numbers. So you can always know that variables are names that are freely chosen. I'm just using numbers. You can decide to use anything. So variables, but print is not something that is freely chosen. It is the language that the machine understands that, oh, you want to display something. So you can't decide to say, oh, I don't want to use print, I want to use something else. But this is a variable. It can assume anything. You can use anything here. You can decide to use your name. But what is most important is that if you decide to change this one, it means when you want to print, you have to use the same thing here. So I want to print numbers. Let's see what the output is going to look like. This is actually just returning the numbers that we defined initially. It's not looking like something fun, but there are some fun things that we can do with this. I can decide to say, um, let me say 2 or 3. Yeah, let me say 3. And then if I print this, you're going to see something interesting now. It's showing me 4. And why is that? But let me show you another one. If I print 4, what is it showing me? It's showing me 5. And this is because I am accessing what I have here with the index. Every item here is represented by its index, and the index of 1 is 0. The index of 2 is um, 1. The index of 3 is 2. The index of 4 is 3. The index of 5 is 4. So that is why I can say for 0 is going to give us 1. So that explains that. So loops and conditionals, these are very important as well when you are writing code. You want to perform automated operations. You don't want to do something multiple times. You want the machine to be able to do it for you. For instance, let's say you want to loop through a very long list, or maybe you have a long data set, a huge, let's say you have 1,000 rows of data, and you want to perform operation on each item. So instead of you to be doing it one by one, so loops are those things that help us to actually perform operations automatically on a very long um, or a large data set. So if I run this, I have said for I in range, let me use 5. So for I in range 5, print I. Print every integer in the range up to 5, but excluding 5. It's going to exclude 5. So it is printing starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the same thing, if I decide to make it 10, it's printing up to 9. So that is for loop. But for a while loop, this was one of the problems we had while we were doing the live session. So this while loop is like you want to drive a car and the car is without the brake. If the car is without the brake, there is problem. So we were trying out some things during the live session and it almost crashed my computer because we forgot to put a brake. So you understand what I mean by brake by listening quickly to this. If I begin by saying count is equal to 0, that means I have defined a variable. You can decide to call this anything, but make sure that you have stated the same thing. You know, you have stated the same thing. If you change this, you have to have no, you must have changed this as well. So if you don't, you might have problems. So if I define a variable as 0, and then I say while count is less than 5. So while this variable that I have defined, while it is less than 5, I want it to perform this action. That's the first action. There are two actions actually. This first action and then this second action. So what's going to happen is that while count is equal to 0, that's from the beginning. So while count is less than 5, that means while 0 is less than 5, 0 is actually less than 5. That's true. So because it is true, print count. So count is what? 0. So it is going to print 0. It's going to print count is what? 0. So after printing count is 0, go to the next line, which is the next action to be taken, and do what? And add 1 to count. So if we add 1 to count, count was 0. So if we add 1 to it, it's going to give us what? It's going to give us um 1. That's 0 plus 1. So we have a new value for count instead of this one. So that new value that we have for count, which is 1 now, because we added 1 to 0, you will now come back here again for the second loop and say while count is less than 5, the value of our count this time is now what? 1. So while 1 is less than 5, what should I do? Print count again. So it's going to print count again the second time and then come back here to say what? The count that it has printed was 1. So after printing 1, it comes here again to add 1 to that count. Count was 1, so you add 1 to it to get what? 2. So now that it has added 2, it will come back here again. While count is less than 5. So your account is what? 2 this time around. So 2 is less than 5. So it will come again and print what? Print 2. After printing 2, it comes here again and add 1 to that 2 that it has printed. Then the new count value becomes what? 3. So it comes back here again to say while count is less than 5. So that value of count is what? 3. And that is 3 less than 5. So if that condition is true, it comes here to print that value of count, which is 3. So after printing that, it comes here again to add 1 to that count, which is what? 4. It comes back to start the loop again and say while count is less than 5. The value of count is what? 4 this time. So it says 4 less than 5. If it is true, now that is true, then it says print the value of count. So when it prints the value of count, it comes back here again, add 1 to that value of count to make it what? 5. Because you have printed 4. So it comes here again to say while count is less than 5, because the new value of count is 5. So count less than 5 um is count less than 5. The value of count is 5. So that is not true. Because that is not true, it will not print anything again, and it will not count. It will not add any count again, and that will be the end of the loop. So this is what I meant by breaking. So imagine we don't have anything to break it. It's going to crash the computer because it should keep going on and on and on and on and on and on. So let's quickly run this and see what we get. So the first count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And after printing this 4, and then it comes to say count plus 1, that means it adds 1 to it to make it 5. That is why we get the break, because when it comes here and say while count less than 5, our count is now 5. So 5 less than 5 is not true. So it will stop. So that is that. So if else condition, this is done when you have multiple conditions. So we're just working with just single conditions and all that. So but if you have 2 or 3 conditions that you want to put in your code, for instance, I want to declare that a variable called num is equal to 10. If I do that and I want a condition that if num is greater than 0, I put column, and I want this action to be taken. I want it to print that positive number. Else, if this elif is simply saying elif, is simply saying else if. So else if num is equal to 0, notice the double equal. If it is strictly equal to 0, print 0. Else, print negative number. So let's try that. We have defined num to be what? 10. So let's see what the output is going to be, positive number. But if I decide to change this to minus 10, it tells us it's negative number. So let's okay, I want to start this from scratch so you see it. I want to start this from scratch so you see it. uh So I want to start this from scratch just to print to build a simple calculator. So in a simple calculator, um, you have basic arithmetic operations like we defined the other time. We talked about um, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Those are just basic operations in arithmetic operations. So let's see how we can build it. We can build it with all these conditional statements that we have stated. And then to make our code efficient, there is something called functions in Python, and some other programming language have functions. So functions are ways of writing efficient code. You don't want to write code that is just anyhow, not properly structured, not properly understandable. So, and codes are usually maintained. They also undergo maintenance, just like you have machines that you are maintaining. So they undergo maintenance. Or maybe you are writing code and you want your team, members of your team, to easily understand what you have written, and then it's just like some of the best practices that people make sure they observe in writing codes. So to begin a function in Python, you use the word def. So for me, I don't advise you to cram things. So it's just to understand that there's something called function. For instance, if you want to write your function and you forgot how to write it, if you go to Google or you go to Stack Overflow or you go to ChatGPT, how do I write a Python function? You will see how to write it again. So I'm just showing you this. You begin with def. That is the keyword that Python understands. So I just in my head I just say maybe it means define the function def. So define function. Then the next thing that you write is the name of that function. I want to call it calculator. So if I call the function calculator, the next thing to define is what input do you want the calculator function to accept? You put those inputs in the bracket. I want it to be able to accept two numbers. So I want to represent those two numbers with a, comma b. So the first number is a, the second number is b. And I want it to also accept operation, like the type of operation that I want. I want it to perform. Those are the three parameters that I want the function to accept. And then I put colon, meaning that I want it to take some actions. So if I click on enter, it takes me to the next line. So what actions do I want it to perform? I'll now say if operation is strictly equal to add. So if the user has selected add, I want to put colon, take this action. What action? Return. So functions use the keyword return to give us answers. So, and what do I want to return? I want to return a plus b. So after returning a plus b, that is the first condition and what the result should be for the first condition. I will now say elif. I'm using elif because I'm having multiple conditions. So elif operation, that's else if operation, is now strictly equal to add. Sorry, subtract. If it is equal to subtract, what should I do? Colon, return what? A minus B. I'll go to the next condition. It's going to be another elif. Elif operation is strictly equal to multiply. Multiply. What should I do? I want it to return A multiplied by B. Now, I want to have another elif. So I can copy this one actually and then change it to the other elif that I want. I can copy that and paste it here. So if operation is now division, I can say A divided by B just to make things faster. Now I have defined 1, 2, 3, 4 conditions. So I want to define the last one. So I will use else because it's the last one. else what action should I take? If you don't have any of these conditions, if none of them fits the situation, the last thing that you should do is to return what? This statement invalid. Return the statement that invalid operation. So that is the function. We have defined the function. So if I run this, I don't expect to see any output because we have only defined the function. We have not used the function. So to use the function, um, I need to also mention that if you have hashtag, it means that you don't want the machine to run that code. It's not a code, it's just a statement. So if you want to include statements that will make you understand your code, you can include this hashtag and then text in any part of your code just for documentation purpose or to understand what you are doing. So if I want to define num1 equal to 10, I want to use that function that we have created. So I need to first of all define my parameters. I say num2 equal to 5, and then I say operation equal to add, and then I say result equal to uh the name of that function is calculator, and then I put the brackets. You remember these brackets as stated here. That is how you should arrange it. So the first thing that you put in is what you want to be your A. You want what to be your A? Num1 is what we want to be our A, comma num2 is what we want to be our B, comma what? We are defined operation. So operation. So we have defined what we want as our result. So now I can print the results. I can print results. So if I run this now, I'm supposed to get an answer printed. So answer 15 is printed. So that explains that short code um, in using functions to to create something as simple as a calculator. You can Functions are very, very important. So we'll be doing more of that as we go on, especially when you want to write code that is reusable. You don't want to write code all the time to do different things. So you want to write a simple code like a function that you can use in different places. So loading your first data frame. So when you go to Excel, you see data frame, you see tables, you see all that. So how can we load it into our Python environment? That is going to be the last thing I'm going to show you in this session. So to do that, remember I told you about the Python libraries, the NumPy, Pandas, Seaborn, so you can see what they are used for. So for data manipulation, the most important um, Python library is called Pandas. So if you don't have it installed in your um, Jupyter notebook, the installation guide is there. You need to do what? Pip install Pandas and the other library. So in this case, I've already installed it, so I don't need to install it anymore. So after installing it, to use any Python libraries, you need to import. So I need to first of all import pandas. After importing pandas, I, in the spirit of efficient coding, because I'm going to be writing pandas, I'm going to be calling it as I write the code. When I want to use it, I'll need to write pandas. I don't want to write pandas. Instead of that, I can give it an alias. I can give it alias as what I want to be calling it. So I can say import pandas as PD. so that anytime I need it, I don't need to write pandas. I'll just write PD. So with that being said, now I want to go to the next line where I can name a data frame. So I want to show you the data frame that I want to load. I want to load a data frame called, it's called art disease data. So this is a comma separated values file, a CSV file. CSV file, please note that. So this is a comma separated values file in Excel, and I want to load it into my uh, environment. So to do that, I return back to my um, naming is very, very important. Anything you want to do, always know that you need to first of all give it a name, because it is that name that you'll be using to call it. So in this case, I want to call the name of what I'm bringing. I want to call it DF. You can call it whatever you want. And I say DF is equal to PD, which is pandas that we have already given an alias. You can decide to import PD as whatever you want. You can import it as your name, as long as you know. But best practices requires that you use efficient way of writing code in ways that people will understand. So normally most people just import pandas as PD, they import numpy as NP, they import cborn as SN or whatever. So just to make it shorter and not too much writings in your code. So I've already imported it as PD. So I'm going to say PD dot read underscore CSV, and then I bring a bracket, and then I break this quotes, and then I bring the name of the data set that I want to bring in. The data set is art underscore disease underscore data. So I'll bring that in at underscore disease underscore data. Now you need the extension of this data frame, the file. It is a .csv file. Like I showed you earlier, the CSV it means comma separated values. You can see that here. So Microsoft Excel comma separated values. So um, there are other types, but the most popular that we'll be using, at least for this level, will be CSV files. So if I run this, no errors. I've been able to run it with no error, right? No error. So nothing is showing, nothing is displayed, because what I've done is just to define um, the data frame. I've called it DF, and this is what I want to put inside DF. So for me to actually see what is in DF, let me insert a new cell for that purpose. If I insert cell below and I call DF, and I run, it's loading the data. So you can see this dark spot here telling you the kernel is busy. So it's trying to load up the data frame. Oh yeah, it's downloading, and this is what we have in there. So we are going to be taking off from this part to do a lot of manipulations with our data in our next session. So you have this as hands-on exercises that you can do. I'm going to be sharing this document with you as well. So um, thank you very much.